So hopefully people will be able to join. I know it's quite late where you guys are dialing in from. So thank you very much for giving up some time in your evening to join us. And if you're watching it later in a recording, thank you so much for taking the time to, come back and listen and hear what we have to say. My name is Hazel Waters. I am a recruitment executive on the MBA recruitment and admissions team here at Oxford Saïd. And for the next 45 minutes or so, I have the honor of moderating this panel of some fantastic women from South Asia who have completed the MBA or who are currently still doing the MBA, just sort of at the end of their term. So all experts in their own right on the year that they did it, and also on the current year that we've just had as well. This webinar is especially designed for women based in South Asia who are considering doing an MBA at Oxford. We know that doing an MBA is a career decision, but it's also a personal journey. So the idea is that you guys get to hear directly from people who have navigated the path already and who could maybe give you some tips and tricks and insights into how you can make yourself a standout applicant, or just how to take, advantage of an Oxford MBA year. What I'm going to do is hand over to the guys to introduce themselves. But before that, just to let you know, essentially it's a very informal webinar. I'm going to have a couple of questions and I'll do them now. But at the end, it really is up to you guys to submit your questions and use this time wisely and to get insights that, to questions that you have. So please feel free to use that Q&A box. I will then sort of go to them at the end and we can answer those questions live. But let me hand over to our wonderful panelists. And basically my first question is, can you introduce yourself? Give me a bit of a background of where you're from, what you were doing before your Oxford MBA, and sort of what made you consider doing an MBA at that point in time. Mashal, you're first on my screen. Are you okay to answer the first question?
Yes, thank you, Hazel. Excuse me. My name is Mashal. I'm originally from Pakistan, so lovely to meet all of you here. And before starting my MBA, I was working as a corporate lawyer for the past 8 years in the microfinance sector. And my career had majorly focused on law, and that is what made me feel like I wanted to do more. And that is where the MBA came into the picture. And the MBA has been my way of pivoting towards other roles like strategy, operations, sustainability, and enjoying my journey so far.
Perfect. So how can I ask you to answer the same question?
Hi, I'm Soha and I'm also from Pakistan. So my career journey before Oxford was that I was working in tech product, and it was kind of a mixed background with some I was primarily in the financial services industry, but then there was a mixture of some financial knowledge plus like data science plus tech. So, but I was predominantly working in product. And what made me consider to do an MBA was that it was something that I wanted to do for a while. So it wasn't like a spur of the moment decision. I saw that an MBA can have a lot of value in helping you fast track your career in a lot of ways. And it wasn't something that I decided to do in one year. It was something I worked towards gradually to be able to, get into Oxford for my MBA. Yeah, so it was a long process. And I think the time at that time was I was working in product, but then I wanted to sort of take it to the next level and also future-proof my career in a way. So yeah, that's me.
Brilliant. Aditi.
Hi everyone, my name's Aditi. So I graduated from my MBA in 2023. Before my MBA, I was working at a healthcare venture capital fund. I decided to do my MBA to firstly like fast track my professional journey, grow more as an executive and be able to lead diverse teams. But then also from a personal perspective, I wanted it to be a mix where I develop personally, meet people from diverse background and truly experience the wider Oxford experience. Post my MBA, I remained in the industry, but like managed to get a promotion right after. So I think it was a quite good journey afterwards as well. And also, I think just adding one last bit, like it's one of the best years of your life for those who are considering it. Yeah, that's about it.
Great addition. Connect.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Kanak. I'm originally from India. And prior to doing the MBA, I was working with BCG in their HR, employee well-being and engagement space, especially with a focus on their diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. The reason I wanted to do the MBA, similar to other panelists, was also because I felt like I had reached a point in my career where there were certain skill sets that I felt strongly about, but there are some that I wanted to further develop. And I also wanted to consider an opportunity working in different geographies because I'd only worked in India before. So that was one of my reasons for doing the MBA. And what brought me to a university like Oxford instead of any others was also because the Oxford MBA is pretty much like doing two degrees. It's like doing the MBA, but also living the Oxford experience. And that's something that you could only get at either Oxford or Cambridge. So that limits your options. If you want an experience like that, you're only choosing between one of them, and Oxford is definitely the right answer.
Wonderful. And I'm sure we'll get questions about Oxford versus Cambridge anyway, so it's good to address that from the beginning. Okay, so this event is specifically for South Asian women considering the Oxford MBA. So the next question is, were there any cultural or regional considerations you had to navigate when applying to and studying in Oxford, and how did you approach them? And I suppose you can be as candid as you want. If there was none, that's fine. If there was considerations, I'd love to hear them. So maybe we can start in the same rotation again. Michelle, would you like to answer that one?
I think one of the major reasons for me to choose Oxford was when I looked at the statistics, and it said like the class was balanced between men and women quite equally, and mostly it was more women, and then like it was 51% women and 49% men, and that was very encouraging because in all the C-suites that we've seen and all the senior management that I've seen in my career so far, it was balanced in a very poor manner. And I felt like if I came here, I would be able to take back home some of that learning about representation and it's how this balance is important in every geography, and also to bring a part of my culture and discuss it in an environment where there is so much diversity and there's so much that you get to learn. So when you add another layer to it, it's like magic. Our classes have been um, just an amalgamation of different perspectives. So I think bringing mine here was a big deal, and not a lot of people from Pakistan end up doing an MBA. So I think that representation also mattered quite a bit.
Brilliant. So how would you like to take that as well?
Yeah, like I think my experience was interesting in that it was really hard for me to adjust in the beginning. And that was because I've always lived in Pakistan. I'd always worked in Pakistan. And while I was really, really good at what I did, just taking my communication skills to the next level really required Oxford, because as Mashal said, the diversity in Oxford is really amazing. And you learn how to talk to different kinds of people and communicate in ways that you didn't know were possible. And that for my job is a core requirement in product is communication and how you approach different people. And I think that 1 year transformed me so much that when I look back at the time that I wasn't in Oxford, sometimes I can't recognize myself from back then. Um, so definitely it's going to be hard, especially if you've not lived abroad, if you've not had that experience of meeting diverse people before. But when you do, if you approach it with the mindset of this is going to transform me and I will really, really like my new self, then it's definitely one that it's a challenge you should take on.
Brilliant, Aditi.
Great. So for me, I think while applying, by that time I hail from Nepal and I had the experience of working in India as well. So I was already covering like two geographies in South Asia. So I think the primary consideration was taking a degree that allows me to be geographically flexible, and I think Oxford is one of like the best degrees to be able to do that. Since then, like I've worked at a fund where I was covering Southeast Asia, South Asia while sitting in Europe. So I do think the communication and the personal aspect really translates well in your professional aspect too. It's also a very widely recognized brand, which doesn't hurt when you're talking to different stakeholders. Talking about the experience of the MBA directly, I would say I think things that really surprised me was like when you come to the MBA, you see people from all kinds of not just like diversity in terms of like where you come from, but also like walks of life. People from different age groups, people who are married, people who are figuring things out. Um, Also people from very different industries. You can really find I think a support group and a network and a lot of cheerleaders within the batch itself, so that really helps build confidence, which I think is something that is kind of missing back home, at least based on my experience. I think South Asian culture is very academically competitive, but I think Oxford is a more well-rounded experience where we can focus on a lot of extracurriculars at the business school, but also in the university, which I think again, like echoing what Soha mentioned, like really transforms you as an individual in that entire year you spend.
Brilliant. And then Kana.
Thank you. So I think just adding on to what the panelists have said, even before I had come into Oxford, I had already like on the websites, etc., seen things like the Women's Alliance. I had read about the Pride at SPS Club. I had seen all the clubs and OBNs, everything that they were doing. And I think that made me, even before coming in, feel like I will have such a strong community there because, of course, wherever you come from. And I think I was very fortunate that in my year itself, we were there's like 35, 40 of us from New Delhi itself. So it didn't feel like I was the only one doing it. We had already met multiple times even before we had gotten here. And I think once we got in, it was all about like which clubs are we joining, what, who's joining the student council, are we joining this alliance, are we, we had already done the Edinburgh trek even before we did the MBA together, right? We had all gone together, like 200 of us had gone to Edinburgh even before coming here. So I think like when my mom actually came to drop me in September, she was more like, she was very, very content in the sense like, she was like, she's going to be fine. Like she has people that are helping her move. She's already going to a debate in the Oxford Union, and then they have something else going on tomorrow. Then they're going here. I think like there's just so much happening at that point in time, and so many experiences that are curated for you, that I think there's the support system that you get out of it is very, very strong. And in fact, I think there were points even coming up in like May, June, where we were like, there's still some people that we haven't met, or there are some people that I've gotten close to in the last 1 month who I probably hadn't gotten close to throughout the year, right? But I think the MBA just keeps surprising you, and your paths will cross with people on formal dinners. They will cross with people in a study group project. They will cross with people on a trip to Georgia together. Like you will meet them everywhere, and you will end up finding your community, your tribe, and we just know that these are not connections that you will end up building just for this time, but for many, many years later as well. So that's my 2 cents on it.
No, that's brilliant. And you mentioned the Women's Alliance, and you're the co-chair of engagement this year. Did you want to speak a little bit more about that and the events you guys have done?
Definitely, yeah. So the Women's Alliance was one of the first few things that I signed up for when I got involved in the extracurriculars. And like Mashal mentioned, Oxford is one of the few MBA programs that has a 50% ratio when it comes to our the number of women in our cohort. But the challenge that we're trying to solve for through the year was about the fact that it's not about just bringing the 175 women here. It's also about how do you ensure that our curriculum is more aligned for all the case studies that we're reading, the kind of examples that are shown to us in class. They all cover things like women in leadership positions, women that are taking on C-suite roles. We share more information and knowledge about them. The kind of speakers that are coming to campus, we would ensure that they would be speakers that are, say, a woman that is leading women in the consumer goods industry or women in finance. We've tried to do things like, knowledge sharing and awareness sessions, even when it comes to things like, understanding personal finance. And then we are to the spectrum of even things like power dressing, right? And I think all of that goes from, there is so much that you can learn from bringing in external industry speakers, etc. But there was so much that we got to learn even from our classmates, right? So there are, and like Aditi mentioned, the point, there are women that are here with 3 kids and also doing the MBA and also launching a fund. There are women here that their partners and their families are back home and they're here trying to build this career for themselves. So I think it's just such an inspiring space to be in, that the Women's Alliance is basically the gap that brings together events, engagement, networking sessions, workshops, for all the women in our cohort to help them in their personal and professional development.
That's brilliant. And I, even myself being in the school, I didn't realize how much you guys had done and achieved throughout the year. I obviously get to see you guys doing bits, but I didn't realize the scope of it. So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
And you also touched on the Edinburgh track. So I'm going to, which was nicely leading me to my next question, which makes you guys think about all the way back when you did your application. And hopefully you don't have like too much trauma remembering that time in your life, because I know how much work it is. I know how much hours you guys spend. But my next question then is, thinking back to the time when you did apply and you put in all that work, would you now have a bit of advice to give the women who are currently in the middle of preparing their applications? Does anyone want to take that one maybe?
I could quickly start on that. I think my only advice, which I think people said to me even before when I was applying, was that if you're considering a 1-year program, a 1-year program absolutely flies by. So my advice to you when you're applying and you're choosing between programs, choosing which year you want to apply, choosing the geography that you want to go to, just think about what your post MBA life looks like, and even choosing the year that you want to apply, whether you want to apply with 4 years of work X or 6 years of work X or 7 years of work X or 10 years of work X. You will make that decision based on what do you want to say get out of the MBA, and what do you think your life looks like post the MBA. If you're looking to get into senior manager roles post the MBA, then your 4 years experience will not cut it, because the competition is just so high after that you want to be able to have a little bit more industry experience in that region. If you're just looking for a geography pivot, then you rather stick to the work that you're doing, because you're already trying to put your candidature out there in a new market, right? So there's just a lot of factors that you have to take into consideration about what post MBA life could look like. And then you sort of backtrack from there about whether you want to live in the UK, you want to live in Europe, you want to move back to India. And then you sort of apply accordingly in terms of the timeline that you apply to, and the kind of programs you apply, and then how you design that MBA program accordingly, right? The kind of electives you will choose, the extracurricular projects that you do, all of that can also then be linked towards the career path that you are choosing to focus on. Because if you want to get into consulting, there is all the kind of support that you can get to focus on consulting. If you want to get into finance, you join the finance lab. So it's like just having a little bit of a focus area will just help you narrow down what you want to do, because Oxford just has a plethora of opportunities available for you. It's truly about picking what's the best thing for you to do.
Brilliant. Yes, I like to give that piece of advice a lot. I don't think people realize how reflective you have to be in that post MBA plan as well, and how much work you have to do before you get here, because your 1 year goes by and you get pulled in 1,000 different ways. Aditi, would you like to add anything to that then?
Yeah, I think 2 things. Firstly, I think this is an advice I got in one of the panels I had attended when I was applying, is that give your GMAT as soon as you can. And I think round 1 or round 2 is always better than waiting till the last minute, because there's also a lot of pre-MBA prep that can really get overwhelming if you leave it till the last minute. So it's always much better to be organized. I was an R3 candidate, which was not too bad, but then I feel like the sooner you do it, the better you can plan your year out, especially as an international candidate, because there's a lot of things that you need to figure out. The second thing I think is around just, I think, kind of extending on what Kanak mentioned, just plan your year out before you come in. And I think that really helps you with your application, because one of the key questions is what do you want to do post MBA. I think if you have that clarity, you've like you can get through your application, but also go about planning your year, connecting with the right kind of alums before you come in, which can go a long way. Because I think once you get to Oxford, it's just absolute madness.
It is, and lots of, yeah. I once heard a student give advice of like find your anchor, like before you come, find a thing that you constantly reflect on and return to. And I wanted to echo your point of apply in, the earlier rounds. The last 2 years we've had a wait list on both of our, stage 5 rounds. So if Oxford's your number one choice, if we're at least in the top 3, maybe consider applying in the earlier rounds because it does get extremely competitive. So how would you have any tips or tricks there as well?
Yeah, I was just thinking about my time at Oxford and how I did everything very differently. And that really goes to show that when you're considering a degree abroad, there are a lot of like different situations that you can be coming from. And given the situation you're coming from, I think it's important to recognize that no matter what you do, it is a leap of faith that you're taking, and there are no guarantees. And that can be a good thing and a bad thing. You can have a very set idea of what you want to do, but that might just completely fall through while you're doing the MBA. And it might also fall through when you're nearing the end of the MBA, you're looking at what options you have, you're trying to get a job based on your personal life circumstances. I did everything I wasn't supposed to do. I wasn't part of any of the OBNs. I didn't go to the Edinburgh check. I mean, I wish I would have, because I was coming from a different place. I didn't like the change of moving geography, and I don't think I dealt with it very well. But even if you do not do everything, you do some things here and there, like it's not a life-changing thing, and it's fine. You're going to grow in your own way, and you're going to have to choose what ways you want to grow in. That could be being part of all of the societies, or that could be just networking intensely, that could be staying in your room and thinking about things, and that's fine. But you have to leave room for the unknown and know that you can't plan everything into oblivion either. Just have like some direction. That's always good. Have goals in life, but yeah, let life surprise you a little as well, because it is a risk you're taking. If you're coming in thinking, oh my God, if I don't get a job after the MBA, all of my MBA investment goes down the drain. The MBA's value is a lot more than just the immediate job you get out of it. It's the network, it's the access you get, it's just the ability. It gives you the ability to do so much more than you can fathom at this stage, because we're often very myopic. We think about like just the short term, but the fact that when I have the Oxford MBA on my CV, a lot more doors open to me. And I'm able to access a lot of the things to get to my goals faster than I was previously. So I think it's important to keep that in mind and not get like bogged down by every little thing, because everybody will have like 10,000 things of advice of like, you should do it this way, you should do it this way. Just do you. It's fine.
I always remember a student, I think it was the batch before yours, but she said there was like a 1 week trek to Scotland where you didn't speak for the whole week, you just stayed silent. And she said it was the best thing of her whole MBA because she just like literally wasn't allowed to speak. She had to actually think. And then she sort of got to rejig. But it's like that your brain goes 1,000 miles an hour, you're trying to do your best. And nobody has the same MBA experience. So I think it's good to get advice now before you start. Michelle, can I end on you with that question?
Yes, so the panelists have covered most of it, but what I'd like to add is um, do not feel that do not hold back when you're writing your applications. Put in that personal touch, write your personal story in there. It's okay to be vulnerable in that. The admissions team is wonderful. I thoroughly actually enjoyed my applications process. Just writing it included so much of reflections that I knew that this is where I wanted to go just because of how writing the application made me feel. And the admissions team is always ready to help. So if you have any issues regarding funding, regarding the application process, they are very readily available. And regarding funding, I would also like to add that like the fees itself is quite a big amount. So, but there are a lot of funding options available. Definitely research those. And additionally to that, I think most of my class had taken out a loan, whoever was not able to get funding, and that is always an option. And I remember when I was taking that decision, it was a big one because it's a huge loan when I converted into my home currency, but um, it really is worth it. Even right, like a year down, I can definitely say that that risk is definitely worth taking.
That's honestly a really good point, and probably the biggest point of a lot of people, and it's like the first hurdle to think about. And we always say like plan, plan, plan. And when you think you've planned financially, plan again, because things like that Edinburgh track come up, or like, fun things happen and people want to get involved. So really good point. And a really good point is there's lots of scholarship opportunities. It doesn't mean everybody would get scholarship or funding, but you can't apply after. So please research, please look and see if you think it applies to you, please apply. It's, you can apply to as many scholarships as you would like to. Please do quality as well as quantity. But you can't retrospectively apply. So if you're doing your research now, make sure that's part of your research. Okay, guys, we've about 15 minutes left. And I want to hand over to the audience. So if the audience could start putting in any questions they have in the Q&A box, that would be fantastic. I've got one in there already, but if anyone else would like to, that'd be great. In the meantime, I've one more question for our panelists, and then we'll head over to that Q&A box. But and maybe this time I'll start with Soha in the middle, so just everyone doesn't feel like they're not getting the point across. My question is basically, what was the highlight or a highlight of your Oxford MBA? So that could be either in the classroom, outside the classroom, whatever sort of moment comes to mind that you thought was quite a highlight of the year.
I think it was the EP project for me because in other projects you were sort of like put together for a team, but for the EP you sort of came together and you could work with people that your working styles matched with, and just working with my peers professionally, it was really nice because it reminded me of my abilities to be able to do things, and you sort of like sometimes forget that. So it was that was my highlight for the MBA. The EP project, the entire team, like I became really good friends with my team as well. And it was okay, so I still think that it was a really good solution. The panel on the judges might not think so for the project, but it was truly remarkable what we were able to achieve together and the innovation that came through because we were just so diverse and we put our brains together to build something bigger than us. Yeah.
Fantastic. So yes, EP is the entrepreneurship project. It's an elective that you can choose to do. You can bring an idea with you, or you can create an idea as a team. But lots of people find they enjoy it more than they would have thought that they would have. Aditi, have you got a highlight that you'd like to share?
So back in the day, I remember like when I was in the finance lab, we had to do this Bank of America challenge. And I was sitting next to two of my friends, and we just decided to participate together. And I think we took it quite lightly in the sense that like we wanted to make sure we have fun while we are also doing the project. We picked a company that we probably didn't think had the best financials, but also like a really fun company to present. And I also remember before we submitted it, like literally 2 days before that, we went swimming at Ifli just to do a little bit of team bonding. When we entered the competition, we saw all the other teams, and we were the only team with all, like girls in it. And like the moment we presented our thing, like our presentation, like we were bombarded with I think some 100 questions in under 30 minutes by investment bankers. Like who are quite experienced, but also Oxford alums. Like right before I was walking out, I saw the look on my professor's face, and I could tell he looked proud. And like when at the end of the entire thing, like when they came to announce the winners, I feel like I sort of already knew it, but like we were the first all girls team to win the competition at that point in time. So it was quite a big highlight. It was in Micklebus. And also, I think like those are the friends who are still my friends, and I'm attending one of their weddings next year. So I think, yeah, I think all in all, it was a great experience professionally and personally.
Oh, brilliant. I'm going to go to Kanaki next.
So normally people would say the MBATs is one of the highlight, which we can talk about after, but and that is definitely going to be one of the highlights for me as well. But for me, one of the highlights was actually the Easter break when we have a lot of treks. So there was one trek that I was planning to Switzerland, which was the Family Business and Family Offices trek. I had been planning all summer for that, and then I was visiting Georgia for a trek, which was a cultural trek where I wouldn't really go to Georgia otherwise, but it was, we got an opportunity to go there, meet our classmates' family, and just, see a beautiful location with our classmates. And then along with that, there was a trek that was happening in India. And this was one of the most spontaneous plans that I had just landed in India that morning for Easter, and there were a bunch of folks that had gone to the Taj Mahal. And that evening, I just texted one of them saying, I'm really tired to come meet you guys to the alumni event, but why don't you come over? And then in the next 1 hour, like 15 MBAs showed up at my house in India. And my family was also just like, it was a Sunday evening. We were just relaxing, but it happened to be an evening where they all came over, and then they got to meet my family. They got to meet like my cousin's sister, my nephew, and then that eventually turned into a night of like dancing to Punjabi music together. And like I think the highlight is going to be the video of like my dad dancing with all my classmates on like Punjabi music, and the ones that had never danced on those songs before. And I think that is definitely going to be a highlight, and that's my like one of my advice going on to like future cohorts is that you get to know people in the MBA and in their life in Oxford, but there's also a life outside of Oxford. And if you do get an opportunity, you should get to know your classmates beyond that, like try to visit their hometowns. Like Aditi's gonna probably like travel to her friend's wedding, and like, you travel to different parts of the world to meet these people and get to know their culture and get to like meet their families. And that just helps build such a strong connection with them. And that's something that I'm truly going to cherish for like a very long time.
Brilliant. I don't think we can put in the brochure your MBA classmates will come to your living room and dance with your dance with your family, but I think that's a fantastic highlight. And then Michelle, would you like to finish, and then we'll head over to the questions, the Q&A. I can see people asking great questions already, so we'll answer them in just a few seconds.
Sure. So I think for me, the highlight has been the connections that I've formed over the year, because these are people who were strangers just a few months ago, and now they're there for you in all the highs and lows in your days, because there are huge highs and really low lows, especially in the winter. And the way everyone comes together when just one person is feeling down is just heartwarming. And I don't think anyone has felt lonely in a way where they didn't have anyone to reach out to. Like, you always have someone out there for you. Like, you can literally walk out and you will find at least one MBA out there, and your evening would just change. The mood would completely change, and I think that is the most beautiful thing that I've experienced here.
Brilliant. I think last year's cohort had a 2 a.m. library club WhatsApp group or something, where like it was just these crazy people who always at 2 a.m. thought this is the time to study, and they'd all meet up somewhere in Oxford. So yes, there's certainly people around the clock. Okay, guys, thank you so much. We have a couple of questions. So if you have, I think some people are writing questions in the chat. If you can write in the Q&A box, that'd be easier. The first question is actually for you, Kanak, and it was sort of what you were speaking about earlier. You mentioned about the global exposure that you could get only in Oxford and Cambridge. I think what you were talking about there was sort of that university component and the collegiate system as well. Are you able to sort of clarify a little bit what you were talking about there for the
Yes,
audience?
definitely. So I think so the way it works with Oxford and Cambridge is that you will be assigned to the Saïd Business School, which is your department, and then you also get assigned to a college, right? And you will be assigned to one out of the 39 colleges, and that college then becomes your place for an additional community that you will have of people that are then students across different programs. So you could meet someone who is studying in the School of Medicine, studying chemistry, studying mathematics, studying, law, and then you're also roommates with them and you're housemates with them. So some people are living in accommodations with like 10 people across different programs, but they're all a part of the same college, right? So you're all, and that's when, and your colleges are where you get involved in your sports activities, you can get involved in music activities, you can get involved in, like, there's tennis courts, squash courts in some of the colleges, so that's where you'll have your dinners, you'll have your lunches. So it's like an entire different sort of community, and the best part about it is that at a lot of moments you sort of intertwine those communities, right? So at a lot of moments the MBA community and your college community sort of comes together, or you get to take your MBA friends to a college dinner with other people from your colleges. And then as MBAs, the 350 MBAs are mostly spread out across all of the colleges. So you can get to do activities at, I attended a dinner at Mashal's college, which was like a Pride Month dinner, or we all wanted to go to a Women's Day dinner at her college, or like, you can end up coming for a great speaker that's coming. Like there's a speaker from McKinsey coming and speaking at Brasenose College, and you can go attend that. So I think that's like and with that, it's literally just endless the way that you can experience those things. And as an MBA, you're very, very fortunate that you get to know people from so many different colleges. And one day you're doing like a sip and paint event at one college, and the next day you're doing a picnic with your friends from another college, and then you're calling your friend because you all want to play squash together at a different college, right? So there's so many different things that you can do because you have this whole collegiate experience. Otherwise, if you went to any other MBA program, you would essentially just be doing your academics and your extracurriculars, which is all very heavily focused around the business world, which is also great. But here is where you get to do everything at the business school, which is your typical like MBA experience. And then you have an additional community outside, which you will only be able to experience with the collegiate system.
Brilliant. You described that better than me, even though I've been doing this a long time. It's sort of a difficult one. And then I suppose for a tiny bit of extra context, the pictures in the background, or my background, they are colleges. So it's the quintessential Oxford pictures when you look them up. Those buildings are essentially colleges. So they're home away from home, they're your socialite, they're your hub. Thank you, you did a great job of answering that question. The next question, I might get someone else to answer this if they feel comfortable, is how did you make your application stand out? So I know we touched on this earlier, but did anyone have anything they really thought made them stand out?
Can I maybe answer this one? I think what's really important is you bring your authentic self to the entire application process, because if you're not being yourself, then people can see through it. And generally, like, you need to have a well-rounded profile in order to get into Oxford. There's no denying that. I'm sure people know this already, but you need to have made sure that your career and everything, you've worked hard in your undergrad, or if you have a master's degree or something, but you do have like those little things that make you a very well-rounded person. So given that you have that already under your belt, then your personal essay and everything, if it reflects accurately who you are as a person, even if that means you don't know what you want to do to a very certain degree, if you bring that across, then I think that will make you stand out, in my opinion. Other than that, if you are nervous, just know that in my interview, we talked about music and about Jason Mraz and about how my interviewer had gone to a Jason Mraz concert. So, like, just don't worry about it too much. Most of the things that you need to do in order to get into Oxford, you will have done before you apply. So it's just about collating that experience and bringing your true self to the application.
That's exactly it. We're trying to build this cohesive cohort. We're trying to build people who want to go to weddings and hang out with alumni after and make friends, etc. So being yourself is key. Don't try to be something you think we want to see. So don't watch a movie or watch Succession and think we want that level of person for an MBA. We essentially want to see who you are, what you're going to be like on the program, how you're going to be a representative of Oxford, etc. So yeah, please do be yourself. The next question says,
Sorry,
thank you very much for your time.
Can I just add a quick thing there to your last point? I think when you're applying, and whichever school you choose to apply to, just know that every school wants to build the best MBA cohort. They want to bring people from different backgrounds, different industries, different age groups, different walks of life to form this like 350 people cohort. So when you're thinking about your applications, just think about what value would you add to the cohort? That's it. Like, and that's going to help you like stand out. Like, what is it that you have that other people in the cohort don't have? Or like maybe you bring a different perspective to it, because even if there are so many people from a particular geography, we're all not doing the same thing, and we all are coming from very, very different walks of life and very different experiences, and there is a particular reason why each one of us is on the cohort. So just think about that.
Yes, that's a really good confidence booster, I think, for anybody who feels maybe imposter syndrome or feels like Oxford is too out of reach. I think that's a really good all-round answer. Okay, we literally just have 1 minute left, but we sort of have two questions that are quite similar. So I'm going to pop these together and see if you guys can come up with an answer. Both of the questions are very much so around sort of the career services that we offer. So the first is about the career services and sort of how they could support a pivot from consulting to tech, for example. And then the other question is someone who's moved to London, but has, you know, a background working in Pakistan, and they want to know how to break into the UK market. So maybe, I don't know if someone wants to take the first part about the career services, if anyone used them on their time, and then if someone would like to take the question on sort of breaking into the UK market. Aditi, would you like to go first?
I can take the second question around corporate banking in the UK. I
Okay,
think it's
perfect.
quite straightforward, and I'll try to be quick.
Yeah, go
I
for it.
think the best way to break into banking is the structured route. I also moved from India to the UK and did an internship at a fund and then converted that to full time. So an MBA allows you to explore different kinds of organizations through an internship. And I think that's the best way to move into a new market. Just convert an internship. I know it's more difficult than it sounds, but while you're on the MBA and even before you come, you can apply to a lot of structured banks, for example, Bank of America and Goldman Sachs. I think those applications open before you even start. And then throughout the year, you can also connect with a lot of boutiques and luckily also convert one of them.
Brilliant. You were the perfect person for that question. And just to note, I suppose, before everyone talks about the career services team, you get access to our career services team 12 weeks before you come. You get access to their online portal. So like that, if there is structured hiring that happens before you get here, which likely will happen for finance and especially for US companies, you will hopefully get, you know, be able to see what's coming up, what you need to do, etc. Would anyone else like to take the question in general on career services? Yeah, Michelle, would you like to do it?
Yeah, so because the question is also focused towards pivoting careers, and that is something that I'm doing right now. So what I can tell you is um, similar to what Aditi just said. When you're pivoting from one industry to another, it's a very wise idea to go the internship route. Don't be afraid of thinking that we're restarting our career. Internship doesn't mean that you're a fresh grad, it just means that you're an MBA intern. And right now, I'm doing an operations and compliance internship, which is allowing me to pivot from a purely legal position into something that I have been doing before, which was compliance, which is legal related, but also operations, which I had never done before. So be very open to your first roles. I don't think it's a good idea to be picky when you're pivoting, because the job market is really tough out there, and there are people in their own industries who are struggling to find jobs as it is. So when you're pivoting, just be a little more open to the options coming your way.
Can I add to that?
No.
I think having gone through the process of looking for a job, I've now come to the conclusion that if you really, really want to work, for example, in this geography, if you want to pivot, there's a certain weightage that you place on each change that you're making. And whatever you're doing, there is a certain probability that, you know, so doing certain actions will lead to that outcome, right? So let's say you want to get a job in corporate banking, definitely will an Oxford MBA get that for you? No, there are no guarantees, but it will increase the probability of you getting it, either through the internship route, the non-internship route, whatever. But like it will enable you. Similarly, networking is going to do the same. It's going to increase the probability of you coming across people who will refer you for roles, right? So now the the decision really ultimately lies with you. Do you think the cost benefit analysis allows for you to be able to do that? And if it does, then what cost are you willing to pay to basically get that outcome? Because 100% hands down, an Oxford MBA is going to help you with your career. It's going to increase your probability of getting a job, and you are going to do better with an Oxford MBA than without an Oxford MBA. So without knowing your specific situation to the person who asked that question, it's very hard to say, but you are the person who knows your specific situation, and you can make that trade-off of whether you should do it or shouldn't do it.
Brilliant, thank you. And it's a very candid, open, honest answer, and I love to hear it, and I think it does show sort of the energy and effort you have to put in, but an Oxford MBA certainly does help. Thank you so much to our panelists. I can see there's a couple more questions, and I'm sorry that we didn't get to them today, but you have my name there, Hazel Waters. Please find me on LinkedIn. Please connect with me, ask me any questions. That's what I'm here for. Or reach out to our team at the Oxford MBA inbox, and we're also happy to answer any questions there as well. This recording will be sent out, so if you weren't able to pay attention the whole way through, it will certainly be sent out to you as well. And to anybody who's watching it after the fact, thank you for the time and attention. Guys, thank you to everyone on the panelists for joining today. I really appreciate it. I've really enjoyed the discussion and learning more about your journey as well. And we wish you all a fabulous rest of your day. Thanks, guys.
Thank you so much.